Hello folks, my name is Kate Heenahan and you are very welcome to my second lecture recital of Performance Seminar 1 this semester. Just before we begin the presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about my own personal musical background. I am an Irish traditional fiddle player. I'm also a harpist, and as well as that, I'm a classical pianist. So music that is a hybrid of these genres really intrigues me, and the topic for today's lecture recital reflects that interest. So when I am talking and discussing about the slides, I'll be using a voiceover. However, when I am performing, I will swap back to this shot and perform for you here. So I'm going to move now to the first slide of the lecture recital, which is the title of today's presentation. And it is a lecture recital on Turlough O'Carolan's compositions at the interface of Irish traditional music and European art music within the socio-political context of his period. So now I'm just going to give an overview of the topics that will be discussed during today's lecture recital. So this presentation is an exploration of the music of Turlough O'Carolan from the perspective of the socio and political impacts on and of his writing for harp. And you can see there I have on and of underlined. So by on, I'm referring to the desire for harp music amongst the aristocratic and the wealthier people in Ireland, as well as the politically rich and those with higher social standings during the 17th and 18th centuries. And by of, I'm referring to the harp in the 21st century and how it is still seen as a kind of high art form in Ireland, I suppose. And harpists often perform in Áras an Uachtaráin, for example, for foreign dignitaries during state visits. And I've actually been lucky enough myself to have been invited to perform in Áras an Uachtaráin for Michael D. Higgins. The significance and role of the harp in the story of Irish nationalism will also be explored, and I will discuss why and how the harp became synonymous with Ireland as the official Irish government national symbol. And of course, finally, in fulfilment of the recital component of this module, O'Carolan's music will be performed on the harp by myself throughout the lecture recital. Okay, moving on to the next slide here, and I have a lovely picture there of Turlough O'Carolan for you. So the title of this slide is O'Carolan's Reality, the socio and political context of the late 17th and early 18th century. So first of all, for those of you who don't know who Turlough O'Carolan was, he was a blind itinerant harper composer whose livelihood was gained by playing, performing and composing for the landed classes in Ireland. And you can see the second bullet point I have there. I'll read it out. It says, the flight of the Earls and the subsequent Anglo-Norman ascendancy positioned O'Carolan at a watershed in the story of Irish music. So just to develop that point a little bit further, it was about 6 decades actually before O'Carolan was even born. The flight of the Earls took place in 1607, and that was when some of the principal Gaelic Tíorna, now Tíorna is the Irish word for lords, so the Earls of Ulster, the O'Neills and the O'Donnells, they had been exiled and had to leave Ireland for mainland Europe. So O'Carolan, therefore, even 60 years later or so, couldn't depend solely on these Gaelic lords for his living. He was really reliant on both the Anglo-Normans and the lesser important remaining Gaelic Tíorna for patronage. And I suppose perhaps it is for this reason that the musical influences of Corelli, Gemignani and Vivaldi can be heard in his compositions, because he endeavoured to appeal to the European high culture to which these Anglo-Normans were accustomed. So the first of O'Carolan's compositions that I'm going to play for you today is a piece called O'Carolan's Concerto, which is arguably one of O'Carolan's most famous pieces. As part of my research for my last lecture recital, I carried out an in-depth musical analysis on this piece, comparing and contrasting its musical features with the musical features commonly and often associated with Baroque music. And this module has given me a great opportunity to analyse and deconstruct O'Carolan's compositions and really to explore his compositional traits. So in this slide, I have a picture there of a transcription of O'Carolan's concerto. And I also have a table comparing the features of Baroque music with similar features seen in O'Carolan's concerto. So firstly, I'll talk about the importance of monody, which is a single melodic line and instrumental accompaniment. And that is evident in O'Carolan's concerto. It's a single line melody with simplistic backing. So you can see there in the transcription, the emphasis is in the right hand, in the melody, and it's simple chordal accompaniment in the bass in the left hand. Another feature of Baroque music is frequent, perfect and related cadences, and there are so many examples of cadences throughout O'Carolan's concerto. So I just gave the example of bar 3 and bar 5, 5-1, a perfect cadence. Almost straight away you're into the piece and there is perfect cadence happening. Scalic and triadic movement is another feature of Baroque music. And O'Carolan's concerto, there's too many examples to give. Nearly the entire A part of the tune is made up of broken chords, broken triads, and ascending and descending melodic lines and scales. Sequential writing is often associated with Baroque music, and again you're straight into the tune, and in bar 5 and bar 6 there's a sequence in the melody. So as you can see, there are many examples of Western art music influences throughout O'Carolan's concerto, and I'm going to perform this piece for you on harp now. Thank you very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed that performance of O'Carlin's concerto. Now I would like to discuss the harp and Irish nationalism, and in particular the story of Edward Bunting and the first Irish Harp Festival in Belfast in the year 1792. So at the age of 19, a man called Edward Bunting, who was a renowned music collector and classical scholar, he was commissioned to transcribe the oral music tradition heard at the 1792 Belfast Harp Festival. And the aim of the festival was to assemble the remaining traditional harpers in Ireland to preserve and notate the dying harp tradition. And only 10 harpers actually attended the festival, so it really was a dying tradition at this time. And although Carlin was not actually alive at this time, he had passed, he really did epitomise the best of this era. And from the 10 harpers that attended the festival, Bunting notated no less than 92 of Carlin's compositions that had been passed down orally throughout the years. And interestingly here, at the same time as the festival, so in the late 18th century, the nationalist political movement was also taking place in Ireland, and the cultural objective of selecting traditional Irish music as the national music to symbolise the new Ireland globally was actually made possible by the fact that traditional music was written down for the first time as musical notation in 1792 by Edward Bunting. And O'Carlin's music really was the embodiment of Irishness, yet it was infused with this cosmopolitan progressiveness. And this really created an image that both upheld the Irish tradition and elevated Ireland's status in the European community. So amongst the Carlin pieces that were collected at the famous festival is a piece called Sheep Beag Shimór, and I'm going to perform that for you now. So enjoy. Thank you very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed that performance of the famous Irish air She Beag She Mór. So lastly, I would like to talk about the legacy of O'Carolan's contribution to Irish identity. So today, the legacy of O'Carolan and the image of the harp as the official symbol of Ireland is strongly embedded in Irish identity. Our contemporary view of Irishness is largely based on an Irish identity that was constructed in the late 18th century by the Anglo-Irish writers as a result of the music, the life and the work of Turlough O'Carolan and of course Edward Bunting for preserving his music. So I've chosen 3 pictures here to showcase the harp's pride of place in Ireland. So firstly, we have the Irish euro coin with the picture there of Brian Boru's harp. The second picture there is the harp as the symbol of the Irish president. So that is Michael D. Higgins Carr. And lastly, I have the harp as the emblem of Guinness, which is unofficially Ireland's national beverage. So today, the harp is still globally and widely and strongly recognised with Ireland and Irishness. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you have enjoyed my lecture recital and I hope you have learned something new. I am going to finish off with one more performance of my favourite O'Carolan piece, and this is a piece of music called Eleanor Plunkett, which I actually performed as part of my performance practice module this semester as well. And it's a beautiful piece of music that I learned from the playing of Mícheál Ó Súilleabháin. So to finish up my lecture recital today, this is Eleanor Plunkett. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed yourselves and see you soon.